The president has engaged in abuse of power, undermining our national security and jeopardizing the integrity of our elections. His actions are in defiance of the vision of our founders and the oath of office that he takes to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Sadly, but with confidence and humility, with allegiance to our founders and a heart full of love for America, today I am asking our chairman to proceed with articles of impeachment. I commend our committee chairs and our members for their somber approach to actions which I wish the president had not made necessary.
That was Nancy Pelosi just earlier this morning announcing the impeachment, or announcing a request to the chairman of the committee to draft articles of impeachment of the 45th president of the United States, Donald Trump. Donald Trump responded in kind on Twitter. He said immediately after this announcement, he said, quote, "The do-nothing radical left Democrats," I wish they were radical. I wish Democrats were even 1% as radical as Republicans pretend they are. But I digress. Here's what he said, quote, "The do-nothing radical left Democrats have just announced that they are going to seek to impeach me over nothing. They already gave up on the ridiculous Mueller stuff, so now they hang their hats on two totally appropriate, perfect phone calls with the Ukrainian president. This will mean that this will mean that the beyond important and seldom used act of impeachment will be used routinely to attack future presidents. That is not what our founders had in mind. The good thing is that the Republicans have never been more united. We will win." So, we absolutely live in two different realities. I'm going to play a clip later of Dinesh D'Souza, who is the chief propagandist for the right. And what he did say in this clip was pretty true, is that we just have two different sets of realities. This is not to say that the Republican side is right and that there's an equivalence. It isn't. It is that they have fully accepted an alternate reality. We are living in a post-fact America. And the reason I say that in context of the impeachment of Donald Trump is that it's clear. It is 100% clear to anyone looking that the president was seeking quid pro quo. Period. Now, Republicans have gone back and forth whether or not they think it's quid pro quo. And then they say, well, it is quid pro quo, but it doesn't really matter. The president, he was doing what he had to do. There's all kind of special pleading and lies that they're crafting to get around this. We'll talk about the political strategy of this in a moment. But the fact they literally admitted this to the entire nation. Listen to Mick Mulvaney, the chief of staff for Donald Trump.
So those were the driving factors. Did he also mention to me in the past the corruption related to the DNC server? Absolutely. No question about that. But that's it. And that's why we held up the money. Now, there was a report.
So the demand for an investigation into the Democrats was part of the reason that he ordered to withhold funding to Ukraine.
The look back to what happened in 2016 certainly was part of the thing that he was worried about in corruption with that nation. And that is absolutely appropriate.
Withholding the funding.
Yeah, which ultimately then flowed.
But to be clear, what you just described is a quid pro quo. It is funding will not flow unless the investigation into the Democratic server happens as well.
We do that all the time with foreign policy.
This was just back in October, even though it feels like this was years ago. And Mick Mulvaney thought that he could sweep this situation. The chief of staff for the president of the United States thought that he could sweep this underneath the rug, blaming it on trying to shape foreign policy. But since then, the impeachment inquiry and hearings and testimonies have all demonstrated that Donald Trump was seeking quid pro quo, not to shape foreign policy, but to get a personal political favor against his rival. And that, my friends, is an impeachable offense. And so the Democrats have finally made that move to impeach the president. And I only play that clip because I want to make it clear that the case was clear, right? The accusation was clear. And the only thing that had to be brought to the American public was all of the testimonies from people who were there and saw it happening, and explanation as to why not only was it quid pro quo, but why it was an impeachable offense. And so the Democrats have made that move. Now, towards the question of political strategy, my initial belief was that the Democrats should stretch this out as long as possible. I was pretty adamant about that. I don't think that I've changed my mind so much, but I am starting to consider the impact of getting it done, forcing the Republicans in the Senate to go ahead and find him not guilty. But because so many Americans support impeachment, holding Republicans accountable for not upholding their oath of office. There's not really, to be honest with you, with our country being divided the way it is, you very well may pick off like 1 point of Republicans. But the vast majority of Republicans are going to stand by Donald Trump and stand by the Republican Party. But that doesn't mean that this is something the Democrats should not do. They have a responsibility, a constitutional responsibility, to protect America from this type of president. In fact, Republicans understand this, but they have no problem with the highest level of hypocrisy. They don't care about the hypocrisy. I'm not pointing out the hypocrisy to say, hey, guys, hey, Republicans, do you know you're being hypocritical? They know they are being hypocritical. Yesterday, Jonathan Turley testified before Congress explaining why the president shouldn't be impeached. But this is what he said about 20 years ago when Republicans were considering impeaching Bill Clinton.
You should not be misled. Your decision will define executive power and authority. If you decide that certain acts do not rise to impeachable offenses, you will expand the space for executive conduct. And we will have to live with that expansion.
And he was saying this in regards to a president who lied under oath in a deposition. Republicans 20 years ago believed that lying under oath in a deposition was an impeachable offense, but they do not believe that a president who was seeking a political favor in exchange for holding up military aid is an impeachable offense. So the hypocrisy that I'm pointing out is not for us to show Republicans, hey, guys, did you realize you're being hypocritical? They have weaponized hypocrisy. They have absolutely no remorse, no regard whatsoever. They have no hesitation to lie to America. They have no hesitation, no qualm, no ambivalence, no moral quandary over whether or not they are going to say one thing in this case, when 20 years ago, they had absolutely no problem saying that it is their moral responsibility to impeach the president of the United States over lying under oath in a deposition about a sexual affair. I'm pointing out the hypocrisy because I need you to know that even though Republicans have weaponized hypocrisy and they do not care, we still have to do what we have to do. And the Democrats most certainly had to impeach the president over this quid pro quo. I believe that there are plenty of other infractions that were impeachable offenses. But this one was a slam dunk. And even with a slam dunk open and shut case, you're in a situation where Republicans are so far gone in this country that they are pretending as if this is absolutely nothing and Democrats are just playing politics.